any dream that you have, any vision that you might have for what you can create or what you desire to see show up is based on every single thing that you have experienced in your life up until this exact moment.
This is the Deep Dive with Adam Roa.
Yo, 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 what's up, Deep Divers? Here we are again, another Deep Dive musing. It's me, Adam Roa, and today we are going to dive into the importance of compassion for your manifestation. Let that sink in. The importance of your compassion for your manifestation. And before we dive into that today, I would love to take this moment. If you can take 30 seconds, literally press pause and then subscribe, follow, like, wherever you are listening to this or watching this on YouTube, take a moment to do that. It helps the algorithm. It helps boost it in the searches and on the lists and the charts and all the things so that this podcast can continue to grow and we can get this information to more people. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And let's go on a wild kind of journey now into my process for arriving at this conclusion that compassion, specifically compassionate conversation, but compassion is a key component to you manifesting the life of your dreams. Okay, so I'm going to build a bit of a foundation here with you. First of all, what you get to understand is that what you can imagine for your life, any dream that you have, any vision that you might have for what you can create or what you desire to see show up, is based on every single thing that you have experienced in your life up until this exact moment. All of that information, all of that data, and those experiences have formed a library of information within yourself. In addition to that, they have formed the operating system that goes and retrieves that data and then processes it and then projects it forward into what it believes can happen. This is why treating the somatic trauma and fear that lives and stored in the body is so important, because when your processing system, when your unconscious mind is retrieving all the data, but it's filtering it through a bunch of beliefs that are based in the fear and trauma stored in your body, it projects forward all of that fear and trauma into what it sees as a potential in the future. I've spoken about this, about gray zones. I believe there's an episode around gray zones and how people with that trauma look into the unknown with the fear lens, while people who may not have those same limiting beliefs and fears project into the unknown with what can go right instead of what can go wrong. So that's just a reminder about the importance of treating the somatics of your body. So if your unconscious mind is taking all of the beliefs and the processing and taking all the data that it has stored from your entire life up until this moment, and it is putting together all of these patterns. It's now using those patterns and that information to project out all of the realities that it can see for your future. Means anything from the worst case scenario that you can imagine to the absolute best case scenario that you can imagine is based off all of that information that you have stored inside of yourself and the way in which you process that information. Now, understand that that pattern recognition and the ability for you to see those futures is a fraction, like a minuscule fraction of what's actually available to you, right? Can we agree on that? Like every possibility you can imagine from your life, including growing some wings and flying off to the planet Saturn, like every possibility is still a tiny, tiny fraction of what's actually possible for your life. And how then do we continue to expand what we think is possible? Well, first we need to understand, why is that important? Why is it important to expand what you think is possible for your life? It's because only what you imagine, only what you can comprehend and envision, that are the limits of what you can manifest into your experience. If you're someone, let's get to go to an extreme example. If you are someone who sees everything as being a threat, literally everything, every human, every animal, every plant, all the food, if everything was a threat, okay, then you are going to take action based off of that. You're going to avoid people. You're going to avoid animals and plants. You're going to isolate yourself. You're going to be like avoid probably chewing. You're going to actually probably chew food like 100 times before you swallow it. Like all of the action that you will take will be based on this idea that everything's a threat. And so what do you think you can actually envision for a manifestation? You can't really envision the idea of being in a loving relationship because everything's a threat. And so if you take action based on everything being a threat, do you think that you're going to go on any dates? Do you think that you're going to even get on FaceTime calls? Are you going to get engaged in some dating apps? If the answer is no, because everything's such an extreme threat, you could see how difficult it is to actually manifest that loving partnership. And that's a really extreme example, but it works the same way. So basically what I'm saying is what you can envision for your life gives you the boundaries of what you can create and what you can manifest. So then you can deduce from that. Remember, we're going on a wild journey within my head right now. The deductions that I make when I'm thinking about these things, what you can deduce is that there's a massive importance to expanding what you could see as being possible for your life. If the edges of your manifestation are tied directly to your imagination, then you want to expand your imagination. How do we do that? That's where we arrive at compassion. Because the way that we expand what our brain is able to pattern recognize is by learning new patterns. I equate this to learning new chords on the guitar. You could just, if all you knew was a C chord on the guitar, that's pretty boring. You need to learn how to do a D chord or an E chord or an A minor. So similarly, you want to learn, you want to be exposed to ways of deciphering information, patterns, ways of putting patterns together that you're not normally exposed to. What this means is if you surround yourself by people who think exactly like you do, you are not going to be exposed to those things. People are going to agree with how you think. People are going to reinforce that your way of putting patterns together and therefore your vision for what's possible in your life is going to continue to get reinforced, but not expanded. Now, let's say, again, we've had so much around the politics, and I'm sorry if you're over it, but let's just go with like the Trump, Biden. Let's actually just go Republicans, Democrats, right? And you say that someone is a diehard Republican and you're a Democrat, and you go, I have no idea why you would ever vote Republican. Okay. If you decide that their way of thinking is wrong and you have no interest in it, you will stay in your pattern, your operating system, which indicates to you Democrat is the way to vote. As a result of that, you are not expanded. Your vision for what you can create for yourself, those patterns are going to stay the same. However, imagine this scenario where you talk to the Republican and you're not going in there trying to convince them of anything. You're not trying to defend your position. You actually are going in specifically with compassion and empathy to understand how they put information together. What was it about their processing, their operating system that brought them to a decision that voting Republican was what was the best option? That's why you get into that conversation. And if you get in without compassion, they're going to get incredibly defensive. Their emotions go up, and you don't have the same type of rational conversation. And the rational conversation is the one that you want to have so that you can have your prefrontal cortex hyperactive so you can be evaluating and able to see the patterns. And so when I go into those conversations, I say, why do you think that the Republican candidate's the best one? Okay. Well, why do you think that? Okay. Well, what about this point? What do you think about that? And you go down, and as you go deeper and deeper and deeper into the layers, you're going to realize one of two things, probably. One is that they have information that you don't have. And that information would indicate to you, wow, I actually can change my perspective based on that information, or maybe they have misinformation and you have information that they don't have. Or two, there's some sort of value system or emotions or something involved at some layer that is part of their pattern processing system that actually has them take the same information as you and see it differently. What's up, deep divers? Hope you're enjoying the episode. I just wanted to take a moment to let you know about my new nonprofit, Surrendered Artist. This is a charity organization that I have founded because I want to teach people the power of art as a technology to shift human consciousness. I have spoken about it a lot on this podcast, and now there's an actual organization that is dedicated to spreading this information. It is also aiming to empower artists with tools to shift out of the starving artist archetype and into a surrendered artist archetype. One of those tools is my 4-step creative process called Unlock Your Inner Artist. We have a free gift for you. If you go to surrenderedartist.org/programs, or if you check out the link in the show notes, you will be able to receive a free multi-page PDF describing this process so that you can go and unlock your inner artist today. Now, the funny thing is that people are fighting about that. People are becoming enemies. You have families that are being torn apart. You have friends that aren't talking to each other anymore because their pattern processing systems are processing the information differently. And yet, if we could see that by talking to someone who has a different pattern processor, I can learn how they're putting together information, which is clearly not how I put together information, and it has nothing to do with that situation. I may not decide to vote Republican or vote Democrat or whatever, but what it'll do is give me a whole new pattern in my brain so that I can take that pattern and have it stored unconsciously so that when I evaluate all of the library of information in my head, I can now see new realities for my life that I couldn't see before. I have new chords on the guitar that I can play. That means there's new possibilities for the songs I could write. And so when you're looking out at the future, your brain consciously and unconsciously will see more opportunity, see new adventures, new relationships, new ways of being. And as a result of that, it will expand your imagination. And when you expand your imagination, you expand what's possible for you to manifest in your life. So if you want more possibility for your life, if you want to increase the amount that you can manifest into your experience, one of the primary ways that you can do that is by up-leveling the amount of compassion that you have and carrying that into conversations with people that you may not agree with, realizing that the value that is in that conversation has nothing to do with the actual outcome or result. We're not trying to change each other's mind. We're just trying to understand why they believe what they do, how they got to that conclusion. And the additional benefit, right? I'm talking about the value for you as the creator of your reality, but understand the additional benefit is that they are going to be receiving compassion from you. They are going to experience empathy and love from you. They're going to feel seen and heard by you. That will deepen your connection. That will help them feel safe, which will move them out of the fight or flight responses in their body as they feel they need to defend their position because they're being attacked by so many other people. And that's going to allow them to have more rational thought, and they will experience the same exact thing as you. They will start to recognize patterns that they may not have seen before through the conversation with you. They will feel like they have more worth, that their opinion actually matters because of the conversation with you. And so there's this exponential impact from this for them and all the people you communicate with, and for you and what you're creating in your life. To me, that seems like a high leverage thing to do. Seems like a really good reason to have compassion in your conversations so that you can manifest more of what you desire. I hope this has been helpful to you, deep divers. I really appreciate you taking the time to dive deep with me into this topic. I hope more than anything that it encourages you to take a look at how you're communicating with people in your life, and especially the people that you don't necessarily agree with. Maybe the move is to send this to some of those people. Pass this along, share this out on social media to your friends and family and loved ones, so that we can all start to have a really solid understanding of why compassion is so important. Thank you again. I want to remind you that always, in all ways, you are seen, you are heard, and you are loved.